right, cool. Thank you all for coming. So let's get this started. Let me just put this here away. So Thomas, I switched the camera on, so let me just know later to check if this is all rolling. So again, thank you very much for coming. This is, the first morning panel that we're doing here with the Game Changers Collective. You're here at this wonderful Spring Place, and we are doing this panel series on a regular basis, trying to introduce topics on the technical side to people, and bringing Web3 topics, game topics, AI, etc. to folks that are interested and they are interested in learning more. So breaking this down really from the beginning and breaking this down to make it more understandable. And today we are exploring the power of IP in Web3 with our esteemed panel here. Henrik Gottschalk, aka Victor the Viking, and we got Luca Schnetzler, also aka Luca Netz, and we got Nicholas Cabana, aka Cap Animation. Here you go. So with the projects, and you will hear a little bit more about their projects, so I don't go into more details here. I want to quickly thank our sponsors, which mainly here, Spring Place today. Spring Place is a private membership club that you can acquire here more with the wonderful ladies in the background. That to learn more about this, we are focusing on business mainly, and a great environment, great community to tap into. And then obviously also, we're doing this here with the plushies. I will not introduce it too much here because we'll hear a lot about this. So my name is Jan Rosner. I'm your moderator here today. I'm also the CEO of One Earth Rising. We are a tech company, an infrastructure company for video games, bringing Web 2 to Web 3, and happy to talk to you about that later on as well. Quick house rules. So this is being recorded, just FYI. So hopefully you're all okay with that. If not, now is the chance to run. Other than that, I ask you, please be respectful to our panelists here and be quiet while they're speaking. And when you have then later on questions, we do in the Q&A session, just think about some good questions and you will be heard. And then to my panelists, please be full of insights and short in your answers so we don't waste too much time answering and have more time for Q&A. So with that, kicking this off, I would like to do a quick fire round here to introduce you guys yourselves. And please connect that with my first questions. I would love to hear from you. How did you get started in Web3 and how did this journey start? And Henrik, let's start with you.
Yeah, first of all, happy to have you here. So my name is Henrik, I'm 34 years old. I'm coming from Germany, a wonderful city called Dorsten. I'm a techpreneur for 7 years now, starting with an augmented reality startup like 7 years ago. And then I come to the space because my co-founder bought a Pudgy Penguin. And yeah, that's the reason why I'm here and why we are in this space.
Luca.
Jim. I'm Luca, I'm the CEO of Pudgy Penguins, and I started collecting NFTs in summer of 2020, and I fell in love ever since.
What's Pudgies?
Penguins.
Hi guys, I'm Nick. I'm co-creative director at Clanosaurs. In a previous life, I was an animation supervisor for the animation industry, for creature work, for stuff like Game of Thrones and Paddington. So I've worked with clients like all over the place, like from Netflix to Disney to HBO. And I was always really curious about NFTs, like easily like 2 years ago. I was a collector. I started on the Ethereum side and then eventually went to the Solana side of things. And we wanted to build an IP for ourselves as artists, and it's worked out pretty well.
Thank you for that. I mean, the whole NFT space, Web3, we just came out of a bear market and growing back into a bull market. People are calling NFTs dead. We have survived in many ways and forms and coming back. With you, in your own words, how would you describe, or how would you recommend to people, or why would you recommend to people to get involved in NFTs as a creator and also as a consumer? And we'll start with Nick.
Oh man, okay. So as a consumer, there's a lot of play here. Like you can kind of engage with like-minded community. You can definitely find community via the act of just collecting. you can get rewarded for early inclusion. But I think what's most poignant to a lot of people is kind of like making a bet on what you think is going to be a culture play and being invited into that world, into the growth of, let's say, in our case, a company, but of whether it's an artist you're following or whatever. For me, it's kind of like, let's say years ago you were on, if anybody remembers, like SoundCloud. You find Post Malone's like first song, right? And you're like, I think that's gonna be something someday, and I really enjoy it, and I want to consume it. But usually the only reward you get is, hey, I was there first. Like, I'll tell my friends, yeah, I knew this artist before they were filling up stadiums. And but with NFTs, you can kind of say, hey, I'm gonna get their first album as a collectible, but I'm gonna be invited into that community, and I'm gonna be part of that ride. I'm gonna be part of that history of propping up that artist. And along the way, I can get rewarded. I can, show up to the shows. I can get exclusive access. Perhaps share a lot more benefits than that. And I think that's really poignant. Is you're kind of like, I think this is going to be something. I believe in this artist. I believe in that product and that IP, whatever. And then you get rewarded for that bet you've made. And I think that's a really special thing for a lot of consumers. As a creator, you can take back control, and that was certainly our case. Like, coming from Hollywood, like, you see what happens with streaming and with the writer's strike, and we were like, there's definitely a new paradigm in IP incubation we can explore here with NFTs. One, we can hold on to royalties, which was really great for us, but I think it's about de-risking the whole process. Traditionally, Hollywood is highly gated, it's financially gated, it's institutionally gated. As an artist, you can't really just go in there and say, hey, like, I've got these characters I'm working on and I want to build something. And usually it requires a really big investment up front on a long time horizon. So if you're making a TV show, if you're making a video game or a movie or whatever, it's a big risk. You also get no feedback. There's no community building while you're building that product. This is like the traditional Web 2 or Hollywood approach. And there's no brand loyalty. And as a creator via NFTs, one, you can monetize early in the development cycle, which is insane because, in our case or in Pudgy's case or in your case, you're essentially selling collectibles of the character without much for storytelling right away. But you can start incubating that way. And now, because incentives are aligned with the collectors or the holders, you have this situation where that community is highly involved. They give you ongoing feedback, which is super important when you're building out or developing IP. And you're accruing brand loyalty, and you can kind of pre-package the whole IP with a fan base and hit the ground running. And it's been an amazing experience.
Thank you very much. Very great insights, because it kind of like resembles the culture of Web3, right? Look, your journey was there, an interesting one. What would you say on the same lines what are people missing out on if they're not getting involved with NFTs?
Yeah, I think the medium of exchange predicated on the underlying technology around NFTs just makes it a better user experience. And so if I'm collecting physical goods, there's friction when buying or selling. There's storage issues, a plethora of things that I think make it hard to physically collect at scale. And I think digitally collecting solves those problems. And so it's just a better medium of exchange from a consumer perspective, and then from a creator perspective, you simply make more money. So
it's always a good one. Hendrik.
Yeah, so I think this is working. Yeah, okay.
Tay, could we increase the second microphone a little bit on the volume, please?
Thank you very much. So
Here you go.
the great thing as a third speaker to answer a question, I say, follow these words. But our reason why we as a creator started on the blockchain is that we can build these community, that we can build fans, and that's the reason why we did it. And that's the reason why we are here. So great answer.
And I think like what Lucas said is really poignant on, like, it just makes distribution so easy. So I think one thing we haven't talked about is like the effect it has for one-of-one artists. You're essentially tapping into a global audience. And you're flipping the whole gallery system on its ass in a certain way, where anybody across the world can buy your art because it's digital, and you don't have to pay insurance to have it shipped over to you. And it's a really frictionless approach to art selling and art buying as well.
Yeah, it's a great beginning also to start in something where you might be a digital native and you want to get involved really with collecting and get into that get your first feet wet, the toe wet, right? That's the right term. Right, I fully agree. I mean, look at, with Pudgy Penguins, we've really been one of the most successful projects here available right now, undoubtedly. What is it that, from your perspective, makes a successful project?
I think it would be the community, the ability to proliferate the community and the IP, and the culture. So I've been a huge advocate that I think I'm not a firm believer in utility. I think utility ultimately is a liability, and then liabilities ultimately, create a situation where eventually you either have to kill the liability, in which you become a rug puller, or you just let the liability to destroy you. So I think these things are solely going to win and lose based on their ability to curate and create culture, community, and then how you can proliferate that culture. And so for those of you who are not familiar, proliferating is really marketing. How many eyeballs can you get on that community and on that IP? And that's my belief.
Rick, please.
Yeah, and I would just like transparency. Yeah, transparency is the key in building. So Luca, you say that every time, and I think most of the people on NFT projects, like teams who building transparency, they build in public, and it's like, hey, the CEO is sitting there, and you can go to Discord every week, and they're speaking to you directly, and you see what they're doing every week with the team. And I think this is a big advantage in comparison to like normal brands.
And Nick, on that note, and how do you make it stand out then? If there's, if building the community is the key, how do you make it stand out?
Yeah, there's so many things you can do, and I think the guys are really right. It's like community is the absolute lifeblood of this. And for the way, like, our approach early on was always, one, you have to be present. You have to have a pulse on the Web3 ethos, whether it's, the language you use on crypto Twitter, because, there's a lot of like Web2 companies that come in and they're very tone deaf. And our approach was like, no, like, we're gonna nurture culture. We're going to curate it as much as possible. We're gonna have a lot of events. And it's funny because there's some projects that will say there's not really a return on investment for hosting these events, like the events we're doing at NFT NYC, or in our case at Breakpoint, whether it's like Lisbon or Amsterdam or all over the world. And there's actually a pretty big return on investment, because what you're doing is you're putting all the collectors in a room together. They are building memories around your product. They are building friendships. And you're kind of making that culture a lot more, you're just strengthening that culture. And you want people to have like just positive experiences around your product, which in our case is like our characters, our IP, whatever. And I think to stand out, you just gotta be there. You gotta be active. You have to have a pulse. You have to build a really strong community management team, and just be present as much as possible. I know, Luca is amazing at that. There's a few other killers in the ecosystem that are just always there, loud, and I think you want to make the collectors very proud as well, to celebrate the wins together. Like, I think emotional utility is a really strong one. This feeling of greater calling. We recently started our Instagram account just a few months ago, and it's going insanely well. Zane's here in the crowd, and he's like in charge of all the socials there, and you can see that with the collectors, where they're just very proud to have been along for the ride, have taken a bet on this, and as they see the company do well, or these characters get more and more well-known by an average demographic, they're like, hey, like, I'm holding a piece of history. Like, I'm holding what kickstarted this company. And I think that's a really special thing. So just like, be present, have a pulse on that community, and nurture and care for that community as much as possible. Like, talk to them. We're always there. Anyone can DM me. I know it's the same for Luca. I've had like many DMs with you. Which is not traditional to Web2. Usually, people that are in charge of companies or at that management level, you can't really access them. And our ethos was like, there's no way. Like, if someone messages me, I'm going to take the time. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a different culture from anything that we have seen so far, and we specifically also in the gaming world, obviously coming from that background, it's something that's very close to us, and love that to see and hope that this will grow further and further. Luca, in talking about community and bringing them now, as you do with Pudgy Penguins, to physical goods again. Explain a little bit more for people that, maybe there are some people in the audience that don't know much about Pudgy Penguins. What is happening here with Walmart, what you're doing right now? What is happening with the physical products that you're now distributing or selling? And then also, what's for the future? What do you plan in the future?
Yeah, I think just our thought process is how do you meet consumers where they are? That's kind of been our principle since day one. The idea that we're moving towards a digitized world is a good idea, and it's an idea that I think will ultimately come to fruition. But in the interim, I think it's going to be 5, 10, 15 years before we really hit escape velocity in some sort of metaverse or world where I think that is really relevant. And I think regardless of when that happens, I think people always want real and human connection, and I think physical products are a great way to do that. I also kind of look at it like a status thing. Like a CryptoPunk is a CryptoPunk because it yields a status amongst 100,000 people that it is a Veblen good. And my thought process about it, or at least about how we plan on building Pudgy Penguins, was, well, if tens of millions of people, or hopefully one day hundreds of millions of people, know and love the Penguin, the holders of the 8,888 will be the coolest frickin' people amongst that community and that group. And the interesting thing about NFTs, specifically PFPs, is they're really viral products, and they have a finite supply, one that is not that abundant. And so when you just look at like what it means to create nostalgia, what it means to create emotional impact, what it means to create connection, and then ultimately status, I think your number one objective should be trying to create an IP and a character and a community that tens of millions of people, or hopefully hundreds of millions of people, know and love. And then the math just kind of works itself out. I think, the Achilles heel that we've seen like every major project kind of blow up around is just like too much supply. You just mint more. And it's like, if you just don't do that and then just create more demand, it's not if it will succeed, it's when. It's like a really obvious elementary school model that I think everyone can understand. Yet somewhere in between, whether it's like greed or finances or not understanding the concept, I think ultimately ruins it. But I think from our perspective, that's kind of how we look at it. Is the Penguin is the Penguin. I believe it's some of the best IP, not only in Web3, but I think in the world. And the more people that I get to recognize and love and know and connect with that Penguin, the more demand will be created for the NFT. And if I keep the NFT supply the same, then explosive moments will happen. And they've already began to happen, but I think, we're only 2 years into this, and, we're building this for the long-term horizon. And I think over time, that's an unbeatable playbook to success for the company and, more importantly, the community.
Could you just mention with a sentence or two how the connection works between the NFT and the physical product?
Yeah, so just every toy that we sell comes with some sort of digital integration. The idea is, you want to get them a little bit familiar with digitally collecting as quickly as possible. It's not a direct conversion, but it's something that gets people familiar. And so our concept is, how can we tie physical products with some sort of digital experience, create that familiarity, and then eventually a year, 2 years, 3 years into the life cycle of, random people beginning to love and know the brand, they have some sort of touch point and familiarity around this digital universe.
Thank you. Hendrik, Nick, here you go. You have an animation background, right? And you have basically a whole animation studio involved in the Clenosaurus. What's the future look like for you? What's happening with the holders of a Cleno?
Yeah, so we kind of are an animation studio because most of the people or the original founding artists that started this all come from those studios, whether it's like DreamWorks or Sony or Illumination, having built like stuff like Minions. But we actually don't see ourselves as an animation studio. What we see ourselves as is a little bit like, and I don't want to be cocky saying this, but our approach, we want to be like the Pixar of Web3 eventually, and we want to incubate many IP under the same umbrella. Claynosaurz is definitely going to be the flagship. But yeah, as far as Claynosaurz is concerned, there's not a lot I can say right now, but we are looking at episodic really soon and franchising the whole thing. And on the gaming side of things, it's quite similar to what Luca was saying, but always trying to protect the original PFPs, but providing a lot of like digital loops and experiences. We are building a pretty extensive app that's a little bit like, if I could describe it quickly, it'll be like Tamagotchi meets Webkinz meets Pokemon Go with some like Fortnite-esque elements. And
sounds promising.
Yeah. With all of our physical products as well have loops that go back into this app. And the app is sort of like, of course, on the NFT side of things, there's status signaling, there's itemization that you can collect. But really the way we see it is it's an aggregator for content, whether it's lore-based content we're going to build or ways that we can further incubate or sustainably develop the IP. Like if you think how Valorant and Riot Games does this, they'll give you a free app or a free game, and over time the characters develop, and they're essentially incubating episodic and eventually toys and characters via a video game, and you don't even know it's happening. So that'll definitely be our approach. And it's also an aggregator and an incentivizer for creating UGC and putting it out into the world. So there'll be reward loops for people that are creating UGC as well via the app. And we're building that with a pretty well-known global video game brand. So yeah,
nice,
I'm pretty
nice.
stoked about that.
Okay. So basically, put your eyes and be on the ground, to put your ear on the ground and see what's happening there. Very exciting. I'm definitely, biased, obviously, as I mentioned before. We come from the video game space, so I love this idea with user-generated content. For anyone who's not familiar with the video game industry, the problem that we foresee here, or that we had so long, specifically in Web 2, is that you pay so much money, you pay so much or invest so much time in a game, and you're merely a custodian of holding some assets for a big company, right? So you own nothing. If somebody decides to shut this thing down, then you're left alone with nothing. And so we love the idea of giving them ownership over the assets, and then eventually this can lead to interoperability, bringing assets into other games, into other worlds, creating what's frankly decided, or whoever is going to be the metaverse owner of the future, or multiple people. It's going to be fun. Talking about games, Hendrik, you guys with the plushies have a live game out, right? So that can be played with the characters. What is next on your journey there?
Yeah, so Plushie Pileup was our first mobile game. Next month there will be a second game with a nice brand from Germany. But what we are doing as well, we are creating like our own social hub the last 11 months with a studio from London. But beside that, we are touching a completely new field, and we will launch our first YouTube series in this month. And I bring you the trailer for that you can see how it will look like.
I got the secret key, and nobody's gonna find me here.
Hey, you!
Huh?
Stop right there!
Oh! Don't worry! I have a plan!
I don't even know her name.
Very nice. So tell us more about this. So what's going to happen there?
Yeah, so with the plushies, our goal is to creating like a global love brand. I would say like everybody sitting here. But yeah, so with the YouTube series, we will start in season 2, so at the end of the year, to licensing, to give the holders the possibility to licensing with the first guys of our inner circle. So inner circle means token holder 1 till 333. So we are a collection of 3,333 plushies. And yeah, so this will help us to extend to also onboard Web2 brands. So the years before the plushies with GetBuff, we work with huge brands from Burger King, Amazon, BMW. So, and we see here an onboarding tool for brands from the Web2 world, but especially also for other projects, yeah, from the Web3 space, because yeah, we are believing in that, working together with great teams, with great brands, and then yeah, achieving that together. And YouTube will help us by that, by our only series.
Very cool. Congratulations on that. I'm very excited to see it. I wanted to get a little bit more technical. Nick, you mentioned earlier that you're on Solana, and would love to hear some insights. Why did you decide to go with Solana and not a regular EVM chain? And yeah, how is that going?
Oh yeah, I get that question all the time. And when we were minting, we were trying to make the decision whether we were going to go on the ETH side of things or Solana. And Solana just felt like the right fit for us because we're all about experiences, and UX and user experience is really an important part of entertainment. Like if I click something and I wait a couple, like 10 seconds, 20 seconds for something to happen, like that doesn't fly for me, and you lose a lot of people there. Solana is extremely, there's a lot of composability, so we wanted that as well. And there was also a lot of tech companies building their own ecosystems on Solana. And because everybody was a startup there, we understood that very quickly that we can get a lot of support and a lot of help from all these other companies trying to figure a lot of things out. And so we've been really lucky that we've always kind of pushed the boundaries on the tech side of things alongside those emerging companies, whether it's like new experiences we want to provide or new launch pads that we want to test or whatever it is. And, for like airdrop rewards, we've been able to airdrop like 30,000 tokens in a split second for a fraction of the cost. It's been really special. And then the other side of things is community was a big one. And I know for a lot of people it's like cheesy, and it was always an argument I was using on Solana, but Solana was there was a lot of cross-pollination. So all the projects had a lot of collectors that were collecting that were combined community members. So you had community members from like MonkeyDAO or DA or all the other projects. And the beauty in that is that it really actually helps propagate your brand and accrue a lot of validation early on. So if you have any one of those other projects that validate your project pre-mint, all of those collectors are gonna wanna be a part of that. And I think that cross-pollination played really well for us, minting out, but also in the bear market where there was a lot of like strength and unity. And on Ethereum at the time, we felt it was a little bit more siloed. So you had like Azuki collectors are Azuki collectors. You had just the Bored Apes were Bored Apes collectors. And that's not 100% the case, but we felt it was like a little bit more like that. And we wanted to be a big fish in a small pond at the time as well, so.
Definitely understandable. I mean, I just caught myself doing the mistake that I try to always avoid. If anyone doesn't know, EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, basically meaning you have a different set of blockchains that you can select as a creator, and for multiple different reasons, whatever the reasons are, you're selecting the blockchain of choice, and they're not necessarily communicate with each other. With exceptions there, but thank you very much. Community I think is one of the biggest drivers, or existing access to community is of great support here. Henrik, you talked about this briefly here, just in the context of the YouTube series. So Web2 products, Web2 brands, why do you say Web2 brands should get involved with an NFT project? What's the benefit here? Can you give an example?
Yeah, I think Luca and Walmart and Pudgy Penguin shows what the big benefit of it is. So maybe it's a good question for Luca as well. But if you see, like from my perspective, living in Germany and see what Walmart got for brand awareness the last couple of months, yeah, and you see the interaction on Twitter and on all social media that people are posting pictures in a Walmart. I would say like Walmart comparison with Germany, like, I don't know, like Lidl or Aldi or whatever. It's not something where you go and say like, yes, I want to post that on social media and share that with my friends or with my community. I was here. So, and tons of people doing that. So it's the first time that these brands have the possibility to get brand awareness and to upload their own brand. And from the other side, if you choose, and I think that's the most important thing for brands, that they choose wisely which brand they will work with together. Because we have seen a lot of brands who say like, yeah, I'm a brand, yeah, I'm a successful, I will do my own thing. And I think everybody knows in the room, most of them are not more on the blockchain or not more like being on an NFT project. So the most important thing, if I would be a brand, and I'm talking with a lot of brands right now, is like choose your project wisely and then have like a 3 to 5 years plan. And then, if you want to work with the plushies, I can give you like 10 different options how we can bring you to Web3. And then, we will find a way that you have success together with us.
So tapping into the younger generations and creating community around this for your brand, that's kind of like the key for you.
Yeah, I think this is the most important thing, that brands have to understand that you can create fans outside there. So it's like free marketing for you. Like if you see like how many people are posting about the case with Walmart and the Pudgy Penguins, so these are your brand ambassadors, yeah? So you give them the freedom to create something about your IP, and they will help you to reach out millions of people.
Luca, you're obviously there very much in the limelight, and I just saw your recent Forbes article about you. Congrats on that. It's like a little bit more of a traditional conservative publication. What do you think needs to happen also, or how has the conversation changed around NFTs, Web3? What can we do to help people to understand the medium?
I think just do and fulfill on the promises of 2-3 years ago. I think is probably the best thing that you can do from a team and a founding team perspective. From a community perspective, just keep believing, keep championing. This stuff logically is obvious, no matter what what stage in the cycle we are in. This stuff is going to work and it's going to be meaningful at some point in time. And once we kind of break through that plateau, I think sky's the limit. And then from a team perspective, I was talking to our team the other day, but I was like, we are fighting we're battling the mistakes of a lot of people before us. And that's not easy. It's actually pretty difficult because a lot of people once made a lot of money, but have now since lost a lot of money off of false promises that have never come to fruition. And so it's our job to lead by example, and to make sure that when we say something, we do it, and we continue to push boundaries and break barriers, and that's the best that you can do.
Yeah, we definitely have experienced that a lot, going to conferences like Gamescom. Meetings have been canceled after they found out that we wanted to talk about Web3. So it's definitely still a shock moment where people are distrustful, I think, and we're going to change this slowly. Nick, you want to add something?
Yeah. I don't even think we have to educate. I think it would be ludicrous to say that like the job of these projects is to educate people on NFTs. I think that'll just happen. Like Luca says, it's a natural trajectory for where all of this is heading. Like digital ownership makes sense in the world. IP incubation via NFTs just makes sense. Art collecting, you name it. Like the world is heading there. Like, I don't believe that. Don't tell me that gamers won't expect to absolutely own the skins of like the products that they were playing with in the future.
And that they're paid for also.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. So I think the world is heading there. So the reality of it is it's just on us to do well, to do a good job, and to kind of lead the charge and deliver on the promises, to explore new ways of doing things. For example, our products have NFTs tied to them, like the physicals. That'll be normal in 2-3 years. It'll just be normal. Most toy companies are looking into that stuff. Again, there's a gray zone when people say NFTs. Like I've presented at conferences like with NVIDIA and stuff, and you talk NFTs, and they're just like tinfoil hat. But at the same time, in light of what's happening now in the world, let's say if we're talking about entertainment, everybody can see that it is a paradigm shift, that you can actually leverage that tech to build communities around a product, that that digital ownership makes sense, and that NFTs actually, you know, the way blockchain works is something we very much understand in the real world. It's just property rights, and it just makes sense, and I think it's just all heading there.
Yeah, I think we did ourselves a disservice in the beginning, inventing a lot of different new words that were alienating a lot of the consumers that could have been consumers. But I agree with you, plowing forward and really also inviting more people to join us in this battle, basically, and bring cool projects to light that will just make everybody happier and successful in this space. So we are about to end the panel series here, or the panel conversation. I want you to prepare a couple of questions, please, if you have some. But I want to end this with a question. While I have you all here, obviously you all have your own projects and kind of compete around the attention maybe of these different consumers, but you don't really seem like competitors to me. So why is that? And you know, we kind of like dabbled into this a little bit when we were saying, hey, it's about community, about creating. How would you describe, and I want to hear from all of you, how do you describe the ethos around Web3? Go ahead, Luca.
He's on a different chain, so
I knew that was coming.
if he was on the same chain, we would be.
It's getting tougher.
It'd be a little more.
We could still be friends.
We'd still be friends, but a little bit a different approach. And he's family. He's a Penguin, and he's been my guy since as early as I can remember in the Pudgy Penguin days. So I want to see him win, and a ton of community members are in the plushies. So. You know, I'm championing for their win, and then he's on a different chain. If he was on our chain, it'd be a different story. But yeah,
I think he's on a different chain. No, I'm kidding. So I've been building IP for most of my professional life, usually for like the big guys, right? And the reality of it is there is space for all of them. Sure, you know, you might have many products built around dinosaurs, many products built around, you know, like penguins or animals or whatever, but the reality of it is I could be a fan of Pudgies as much as I could be a fan of Minions, as much as I could be a fan of like Miraculous Ladybug, Jurassic Park, all that stuff. There's room for all of that in my brain as a consumer, and all I have to do is just enjoy it. It's not the same as a tech play. A tech play, like, you can't have a million different Uber-type companies. Like, it just doesn't make sense because it's all based on utility. But when it's based on emotional utility and entertainment, there is room for absolutely everybody. There's so many singers out there. There's so many artists, and it can work for all of them. Same way it works for many YouTube content creators. And I think the second thing is, if you're operating inside of an ecosystem, what's the point of being in that ecosystem if it's not healthy? And the way for that to be healthy is a lot of good products being built on that ecosystem. And in this case, it's all of Web3. And so you want all of these companies to succeed. Like, for me, I would like everyone here to be present in, you know, the next 10 years. Same with, you know, Doodles, Azuki, you name it. Like, all of those teams, if we're all showing up together at like licensing expos, we'll know that we've changed the game. And I think it's a really special thing. And I think it's like right now, because there might be a little bit of a gray zone for NFTs, I think strength in numbers is really important for many good products or IPs to be built across all blockchains. I think is extremely important.
Yeah, I will go with the word of Nick, but I want to adjust, like, I think like 99% of the NFT projects are like scam about the last 3 years. So I think it's very important that we have like teams like Luca, like Cap, like us, and others, that they show the world that NFTs are not scams. Yeah, that the NFT is the future.
I think you were saying basically bringing happiness to the people, right? So when I started coming out of my marketing firm and started in video games, it was such a great experience going to all these conferences and then going to other booths, or people would come to ours and they're like, oh, that's a great game, and come to my booth and play my game. That's awesome, right? It's like grown-up guys being kids again. It's fun. And I want to champion you guys because in this context here, in this new world, you know, successes, different levels, whatever it is, but you're trailblazers in creating an environment that is, fun for people, creating value for people, creating something that they want to get involved, creating community. And so, it's great to see that you're doing this together and, creating, paving the way for others to come after, but creating it in the right way and doing this together. I love that. Thank you very much indeed. Please, a round of applause for our panelists here. And I would love to open up the floor now for some questions. Bronson, if you could help with the microphone. Whoever has a question, Flav, you got to get the first one. And then, please, just we'll pile up on that one. Nick, could you share your mic? Perfect, thank you.
1, 2, 1, 2. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm Flav, representing the Blockchain Game Alliance. We represent companies like gaming infrastructure as well and game companies, and we promote blockchain within the gaming industry. And in one of our reports, one of the key drivers of our industry will be having big game publishing company bringing their own IP into Web3. That's one of the key drivers. Although we have a lot of members saying that, Yatsu as an example, but also Robbie from Animoca Brands saying that gaming Web3 IPs in general will be the one to drive adoption and to help gaming companies to be involved in Web3. Obviously, you are all biased with that question, but I would love to have your feeling and your opinion about why you think your IPs, Web3 IPs, will be leading the way for game companies to understand the value of ownership and Web3.
Whoever wants to go first?
I think it would come down to distribution. I think what a lot of Web3 games don't have today is they're all product focused and they're not IP focused. And I actually think you can have a good IP and a bad game and have some sort of traction. But if you have a good game and shitty IP, I think it's hard to gain traction. Either which way, I think what we have here is we have distribution and we have community. And I've been the biggest champion of distribution since day one, and I think it's just what we have that very few people don't have. And so I will continue to believe that that's our competitive edge until it's not.
Nick?
Yeah, so I can't, I wish I could say it's not ready yet, but I can't say who we're going to be working with, but you hit the nail on the head. I think that it'll be important for these big game companies to show up. And Luca also hit the nail on the head where it's not about like product. It's about the IP. The conversations we've had with the video game companies that'll be incubating ours or building out our gaming ecosystem is like we love these cute dinosaurs. We think like we've been looking, there's not a lot of fresh content out there. We would really like to work on this. And we believe that there's a future in Web3. We just haven't been ready. We haven't found the right product. And you have to understand that the writer's strike doesn't just affect Hollywood. It affects like gaming companies as well. So most of them aren't sitting on existing IP. Most of them aren't even developing new IP. They're just building out on top of existing franchises. It's very easy for them to go to the three of us and say, hey, like you actually already have something. I kind of like it. Let's have that conversation. I think these larger game companies have been sitting on the sidelines because like most big companies, they don't have to be first. They just have to be ready for when the time is right and when that ecosystem is a little bit healthier. And I think we're getting there. And I'm pretty excited. We're definitely looking into that with large game companies, and it's about IP. Like IP wins the day. Does it make me smile? Am I going to want to play with these characters? And I think they do believe in ownership. I know that the CEO of Epic is also, understands blockchain and believes in it. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but we'll get there for sure.
It's again the indies that drive that conversation, right? A lot of good games are coming out now, more from indie studios. Yeah, I really love seeing that and driving that. And to your point, yeah, they're just all waiting at the sidelines to make the right kid, not to get kicked in the balls like Ubisoft did. You want to add anything?
We'll do it for them, basically.
Wonderful. Thank you, Flav. Next question. Luca, right? Yeah. And sorry, I also forgot to shout out to Bronson, my here one of the rising COO, my business partner. So thank you very much for handing out. The
Hey
microphones.
guys, thanks for the panel. My question is, Luca, I've heard you talk a lot about how, don't smile at me like that, man. Come on. How the interaction between brand and consumer is different for a Web3 NFT product, and that's what leads to one of the strengths of the technology. So I'm curious, and this is for everyone on the panel, how do you maintain that as a value proposition as we approach NFTs as a technology becoming more ubiquitous, mass adoption? I mean, Pudgy Penguins, just littles and pudgies, we have about 30,000. So in a world with 100% distribution, how do you maintain the relationship between the brand and the consumer as one of the value propositions of this space?
Luca.
Let's
hear it.
You're asking me? I think we kind of thought about this question, which is like, and I think we kind of brainstormed it in our igloo. Is how do you give people digital collectibles that are not dilutive? I think our answer was like soul bounds. Like, you should be able to have an identity and you should be able to digitally collect, but you shouldn't have the thing that gives you all of the access and all of the status and appreciates or depreciates in value. That should be for the first editions. And then, what's your mass market Pokemon card is kind of like we referenced it. Like soulbound NFTs seem to be like a good solution with like interoperable traits, and maybe those can be traded, but there's no competition between Pudgy World penguins and the 8,888 that live on Ethereum. And I think that was our solution to it. And I actually think we kind of cracked a code in that, which is, soulbound NFTs can be your mass market, way to distribute digital collectibles, and also proliferating the IP and the identity to millions of people. And actually, if you can hit escape velocity on that, the 8,888 only become that much more valuable and in demand. So we spent a lot of time thinking on that, and that was our solution.
Yeah, I will just give you a brand example. For like 2 weeks ago, I was in Nuremberg. It's a nice city in Germany, and there is a big brand, and they're selling like 350 million products every year. Yeah, so they asked me like, hey Hendrik, how can you help us? Because our journey looks like we're producing that product and we sell it. That's it. We have no digital touch point. Yeah, so we have no relationship to our consumer, but we have also no IP. Yeah, so we have a product and we sell them, but that's it. So the journey ends after the selling it. So and they asked me like, how can we do that? And that's exactly, and that's what I've used like now every time in Europe. I say like, yeah, look in the US, look at the showcase, like what Pudgy did with Walmart, and they say, yeah, we heard about that. Can you explain a little bit more? And then you give them opportunities to build that relationship and to show them like how you make your physical product and enter it on the digital side. So yeah, it's very helpful, and I think this is the innovation what brands need, because most of them have no idea.
Yeah, it's a loaded question, but I would say like in terms of dilution, like provenance is important. I think the narrative that the company chooses to take on is really important. We can say forevermore that like the original 10,000 Genesis collection, like that is what built the company. We can treat it as such forever. But if you think about like just on a theoretical or like philosophical POV, like are box tickets to the Super Bowl interesting if the stadium's empty? Like not really, right? Like would the value of those tickets be high? Probably not. And so you always want a couple of products. Some are expensive, some are middle tier, and some are lower and more for mass consumption. You look at whiskey, wine, every collectible product in the world does that, right? Watches included. You have the lower grade one, you have the middle grade one, and really the only reason the high grade one is on demand and interesting is because you have an influx of the mass consumer one. And when you walk in and you see them on the shelves, and you might just be someone that likes to collect stuff, you'll see them all and you'll be like, actually, I kind I kind of want the expensive one, right? Like, and that's just a natural human, I want shiny, I want gold kind of thing that we've been living with since, you know, we were cavemen. So I think it makes sense. And I think that if you're very poignant or pointed in that approach, you're not going to dilute. And like Lucas says, soul-bound digital products are really important to that, like different levels to that game. And Pokemon cards or baseball cards are also a really good kind of like analogy where, hey, like the Michael Jordan card before he was anything is actually super valuable compared to later on. And I think as the space matures, there will definitely be an understanding from collectors that is the case and that you're not necessarily diluting the product.
I think from a gamer's perspective also, there's a little bit of a different approach where collections become interesting, and then also the future now bringing a lot of different technology evolutions in, like, you know, Ethereum with its 6551 ERC, and we have the SUI. So basically where NFTs can own other NFTs. You can have your first Prime collection there, but you can then bring in others into the community where they can come together, and you're basically bonding the Prime VVIP holders with the others. Also, you know, giving your example from a stadium experience, right? So you have different levels and tiers there, but they're all contributing to the same goal. So it's exciting what you can do there, and I think creating specific collections where, for example, our space, it's more about mass, where we get ownership, giving ownership over game characters to gamers. But if you have different collections, it becomes interesting to exchange those two, because the experience might be different if you go into with an elf or you go with an orc into battle, right? So you have access to these different things you can exchange, and it becomes also a new builder of new worlds. So yeah, everything a little bit of a different aspect here, but the gaming world is very, very interested in expanding.
So that was great. I think piggybacking on that, because the threshold of like the top tiered NFTs have gotten like so like exclusive and expensive, there's been a byproduct, and I'd love to get y'all's take on it, of the like fractionalizing of NFTs. It's just kind of a
good question. Yeah. Henrik, you want to start?
Yeah, but first you can start to buying plushies. It's reasonable to buy now in comparison to Budget Penguins.
But still, what is your take on fractionalizing?
Yeah, I like it, but more on the art side. I think, from my perspective, it's a way of owning something. From a PFP side, I'm not seeing that right now, because you want to use that for 100%. So I'm not sure, like, if you have like one of 1,000 pieces of this PFP and then you can just use the eye, for example. Yeah, I think it's not that great using as in a PFP.
Yeah, it's definitely less flexible, or it's not as great for flexing. But I think I don't know, like there's some companies that fractionalize our NFTs. There's nothing we do about it, and I think it's like time sharing. It's like a couple people coming together to buy a collectible car together, or whatever, and that's okay. Like it's kind of like in our POV, it's like don't ask, don't tell. Like they just, if they want to co-collect together, and we're very understanding that the price is high, like that's totally fine.
Everybody can play for 5 minutes a week with the toy.
But you know, the token itself, like the Masha token, is what would get rewarded in any case where there's rewards or you're invited to an event. It's like, well, someone has to pick who shows up to that or who reaps the benefits, and that's on them.
Luca, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I'm a liquidity maxi, so more liquidity, more ways to buy it and sell it. Go ahead.
Thanks. Great question. Next one, Jay.
So this is a question for all of you guys on the panel that are familiar with it. I wanted to get your thoughts on what's going on in the ordinal space with inscriptions on the Bitcoin blockchain, the upcoming Runes protocol, and if you think that will have any impact on the existing NFT projects that are on the other chains, how you think it'll evolve on Bitcoin, and what impact, if anything, it might have on the existing chains.
So I leave this to you guys. You told me about it, but I have not looked into it, so I have no clue. So Here you go, Nick.
All I know is I missed out. So I have a lot of friends that are into it, and I myself haven't really got into it. But I do understand that from like purely like a collectorship POV, there's definitely a case there. It makes a lot of sense. I think that it's not a product that can be composable. Just from a digital POV, like, it can't store a lot of data. So for what we're doing, it doesn't make sense. But if you're using it for the art world and really like just pure collectorship, I do think that it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of history with Bitcoin, obviously. It started everything. So it makes sense. But I think if you're incubating IP, it's a little bit tough, especially if you want to provide experiences, if you want it to be composable, if you want to build gaming products around it. It's tough. That doesn't mean you can't have many verticals. You can have a vertical where, you are offering high-end, like the Pikachu / Charizard version of your product at some point in time, and it's on Bitcoin. You can do that, but it's not something that we're necessarily entertaining. I've seen others do it. Maybe at that time they were chasing the trend, but I think for collecting, it does make a lot of sense, for sure.
Yeah, I'm bullish. I think the more people making money off of JPEGs, the better.
Agree. Wonderful. Anyone else? Question? Here you go.
Hey guys, my name is Chris. Appreciate sharing your thoughts. It's really, as you guys know, the market is always very waves and we have hypes, so it's really nice to see how focused you guys are and you all have a long-term vision. So thanks for sharing that. And while I'm trying to digest a few things that you said before, I was wondering, I understand the point of not trying to dilute the communities and not just bring out more collections and more NFTs. So how do you make sure that the quality of the community is high, and how do you make sure that you can pivot and have kind of an exchange in the community? Because the price tag is quite high for some of these things. Like if you have someone that could be a really additional value of your community, but it's just priced out, like is there a way, like do you have that in mind, or?
Yeah, so I can answer on that, but our community is not that big right now. So I would say like transparency is the key. But of course, like I would also love to hear like if we see the Pudgy Penguins in the last 12 months, maybe Luca, you can say something to that, like how it changed from my perspective as an OG Pudgy Penguin. They are still the guys who were there before, so nothing changed on that. Of course, you have every time like new people, and they will stay there for 2 weeks and 2 months, and then they will leave. They say, "Oh, I lost money or I make money," but I would say like from the core community, Pudgy Penguin is still there.
Yeah, I think from my perspective is you just can't cater to anomaly style situations. At the end of the day, a Pudgy Penguin was significantly cheaper 12 months ago than it is today, and what the price of it today will be significantly cheaper than what it's going to be 12 months from now. So if you want to be a part of the community, like it's right in front of you. And I think like elephant in the room, a lot of people don't address this, but it's like floor price and price. And at the end of the day, it's like anybody who collects NFTs wants price to go up. Like that's just what it is. And like you supplementing that FOMO and that cope to just cater to people to get them a better entry, it doesn't work. FOMO and cope drives prices higher. And so if you missed out and you're priced out, that's a good thing. And I want you to continue to be, right? And if not, like that's what drives demand ultimately. That because you just look at it, people, we'll just speak openly because this is a small room. I wouldn't do this if it was a bigger room. But if you look at Pudgy Penguins' run up, what did we do that made us, that was like, took us from 5 to 25? Like what did we do? We didn't do anything, right? It just happened. And it was a FOMO driven run. It was like, oh, it was obvious. We were in Walmart. They got millions of views, billions of views. Like, no shit. The shit, you know, that was the narrative, right? It was like, oh, that was obvious. Yeah, it was obvious, right? So I think that you want to optimize for that. You don't want to supplement for that. Like you know, yeah, obviously I would love a community of about 10 million people all singing Kumbaya. but that's just not like the reality of it. The reality of it is you want to win, and you want your community members to make money, and you want them to champion the product, and you want them to be proud, and you want to make them feel smart, right? Like they want to feel smart for believing in you. They want to feel smart for wearing this PFP. Like where things turn around is when people start to feel stupid. They're like, oh man, I'm a dumbass for holding this thing, you know? And so you just want to like continue to reward that behavior. And so like price going up and people getting priced out, though if you're on the other side of that, that's a good thing. But if you're in, that's a great thing, right? And so it just drives more demand for the thing. And you want to optimize for that. Like that, I think, is really important. And there's other ways. Like I try to include people who purchase toys and things like that. Like we try to retweet them. There's plenty of people who, you know, they're not, you know, in the community. But if anybody can be in the community, then it's not really a good community, right? Like what makes Billionaires Row in Manhattan and the Billionaire Building, what makes it relevant? It's nice, it's cool, the finishes are great, sure, but it's the fact that like you're in a building full of billionaires and you can make stuff happen, right? It's like if you want to be the sixth millionaire, you got to hang around 5 millionaires and you'll be the sixth. If you're going to hang around 5 losers, you'll be the sixth. So it's almost like association. And so you actually don't want it to be 100,000 people kumbaya. Like you want there to be some sort of exclusivity and status that ultimately drives demand. If anybody can get in, then like what community is that? That's like Brooklyn. Like you don't want to be in Brooklyn. You want to be in. I'm kidding. We like Brooklyn. So, but
we love Brooklyn.
You don't want to be in. I was gonna say Jersey, but then Luca's over there in Jersey. Like you want to be on Billionaires Row. I mean, if you ask anybody, I could drop you anywhere in the city. Where would you want to be? You'd probably want to be in, you know, right, looking over Central Park and Billionaires Row. It's just the truth of it. And again, this is not something that I'd openly talk about with thousands of people in the room because it's kind of taboo. But at the end of the day, it's just like you got to sit in the truth of it, right? I was talking to our team the other day, and I was like, I took my founder hat off, and I was looking at the space as a collector, and I was like, everyone's like crying about ETH NFTs are dead, and I was like, you know what though? Like, as a collector, what out there is exciting right now? And I was like, oh, nothing. Nothing is, right? Just being honest. Nothing is. And so I was like, okay, well, we got to go sit and think really hard on how to create some real fucking excitement because we're the leaders now and we got to, you know, it's our job to do that. So if I can sit back, take my founder hat off and look at the landscape and be like, there's nothing I'm looking forward to, there's a real problem, right? Across the board. Even if I look at myself, I'm like, what does my community thinks is next? I was like, more toys, more expansion. I was like, that's too predictable. So I got to go think of something that is way more exciting, way more unpredictable, that has huge upside and low downside. Easier said than done. But I think kind of went on a tangent. But long story short,
got you really excited here.
Yeah, I did because these are the things that I think it's like almost like on its face, I think you're right? Like in a perfect world, the way that it would work is your way, but it's not perfect. Like in a perfect world, utility, right, would send the thing to the moon. But in reality, utility actually puts a ceiling on how high things can go. Because then you just do the math. Okay, I'm getting this, and then, okay, this is the floor price. So this is as far as I can go. That's why I'm saying I'm trying to like push this new narrative where it's like, this stuff is all culture. This is all camaraderie, this is all community, this is all IP. Anything else, if you try to box it into anything else, there's like real room for disaster and blowups, and we've seen that. I mean, we've seen some catastrophic blowups here over the last 2 years and huge miss execution on expectations. I mean, just giant kaput. But so like we got to try to reframe it, and in a perfect world, we'd be doing it your way, but I promise you, if you kind of look at how these things work, you want to drive that FOMO. You want to create that cope. You want people to be like, damn, that was obvious. I'm out. They sell, and then people can afford it. They're just not willing to sell everything in their wallet to afford it, right? And that's ultimately what I want to succeed is I want to have the highest PFP floor price of all time, right? That's what my community, I know they want, right? Like that's what I know. I know that because that's what I wanted when I collected, and so just address the elephant in the room and optimize for it. And those are the emotions that you need to trigger to get there.
That was a perfect ending. Good question. Thank you. Luca got really rallied up here. Very good. Thank you for sharing those insights. We are unfortunately at the end of our panel, and I want to thank all three of you for all of the insights, all the time all that you shared. Thank you very much. A round of applause, please, for the three panelists here. And for yourself, thanks for coming out tonight. Tonight. Normally I do this in the evening, so it's in the morning still. I definitely want to highlight also, as a summary here, everybody should get involved in Web3, NFTs, blockchain, however you want to call it, in some way or form. This is not going to go away. So that's one thing we can all promise you. It's going to be here for good. So the more you learn about it, if you're a brand, if you're a company, if you're a creator that has great IP and or utility, get involved, test it out, talk to people that know more than you, and just learn about it. And that, I think that is definitely, seeing the successes here and what we have talked about, we need to create more, and we need to create a bigger community around this, and have all fun together. So with that, thank you very much for coming out. Tomorrow evening, we have a little sunset social gathering. All of your names are going to be on the guest list. If you want to come out, DJ, fun, drinks, good people, 9:30. Please be our guests, hang around, and then, we'll see you soon. Thanks for being our guests here. Take care.